Hi everybody, thanks for joining my session. My name is Noz Urbina. I first want to say I'm really sorry that I can't be there with you there in person. I really wanted to be, but it was impossible for this session. So thank you for joining, and I have made this video just for you for this event. I'll be doing how to handle multi-channel content marketing. So, for those of you who haven't heard of me, I said my name is Noz Urbina. I'm the founder of Urbina Consulting, which has been going for just over 2 years. However, I have been in this business of content for about 14 years. I'm a content strategist and modeler, consultant and trainer. And after about 14 years, after about 12 years, I decided to put my life experience into a book called Content Strategy, Connecting the Dots Between Business, Brand, and Benefits. So that makes me an author. And where I've kind of specialized is complexity. So I help usually larger organizations, generally in B2B, but also in business to consumer, handle lots of audiences, lots of content, lots of channels, lots of regional offices, lots of websites, and so on. So it's kind of made me a bit of a futurist because I've had to learn not to look at where we are, but look at where we're going. Because a large organization does not have time to wait until things are popular or to wait until a situation is critically bad in order to move. Because an organization, especially a large one, doesn't move very fast. So it can take years for these digital transformations to really go deep and alter the way an organization works. So I'm now telling everyone in content and everyone in marketing, we all have to be futurists. We all have to see what is coming down the line 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now and start preparing our organizations and our content in order to be ready for it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I do and how I have helped organizations do that kind of thing in the past. So I said I'm a content strategist. What is a content strategy? When you talk about content strategy, you often hear right content, right format, right language, right time. So we want to get our consumers what they want when they want it in the way that they want it. So I call that the right list. So we have to do the right list. But I think more importantly, rather than just the content and the plan for doing the content, is the strategy bit. So for me, content strategy is the overlap and the alignment of content people, process, platforms, and positioning to advance both user and business goals. So if you're being strategic about content, you're addressing that point where what you want as a brand and what the user wants comes together. I'm gonna give you some more context on that particular idea. But before I do, you'll hear lots of people say people, process, and platforms when they're talking about digital transformation and content solutions. I add the fourth P, positioning, because one of the things that I see cause digital transformations and marketing initiatives to fail is they haven't properly positioned content. People don't know what content can do. They don't know really what it means or how to work with it, and they haven't positioned it to the managers and set the expectations of content properly within the business so that it's properly funded, invested in over time, and managed as a business asset. So when I talked about the idea that I'm a futurist and that we're talking about the overlap between what the brand wants and what the user wants, I use a quote from Robert Rose, co-founder of the Content Marketing Institute and a good friend of mine. I highly recommend the Content Marketing Institute as a great source of articles and podcasts and events. I contribute there on a regular basis. And he says, overt selling has given way to problem solving. Sweeping statements have given way to conversation-like messages. So what we're talking about when we're talking about content marketing and content strategy is we're not going straight for the sale. We're not just trying to put out an ad that's going to get us clicks or directly go for engagement. We're looking at ways that we can enter into a conversation with our audience and play a longer game. We're trying to build a relationship with them and actually solve their problems. Because if we solve their problems, then they will engage with us more. I like to call this idea content karma. The more real value you can give to consumers, the more that will come back your way. So basically, we've realized consumers don't like ads. Yes, every now and then there's an ad which is funny or interesting enough that people will actually enjoy it, but the vast majority of commercial messages are really disliked by our audience. And they're getting very good at avoiding them. They're getting great at filtering their emails, at completely ignoring banner ads, at editing their TV streams, and all the usual ways that we used to get to them. Technology is enabling them to get these ads, but also to avoid these ads. And their experience is getting them very likely to try to avoid these commercial messages. So what we're trying to do, rather than shout louder or get sexier celebrities to endorse our offering, we're trying to add real value and think about what can we give to them that does something useful in their life. Because if we can give them something useful, they will trade us their attention for that value-added content. But then that presents us a problem. The more we can make our content adaptive, the more we can realistically deliver tailored high-value content on multiple channels without running out of budget, resources, or time. We want to add all this value, but we have a very complex challenge ahead of us in order to be able to do content marketing across all the channels, which never seem to stop coming at us, and still be able to do it without going out of business. What I want you to take away from that little introduction there is that people stopped listening. They're putting blockers over their eyes, they're putting wax in their ears, and they're trying to avoid us. So we have to make things about them, not about us. I see a lot of talk about digital advertising and digital transformation, native advertising, and different techniques, but what I don't see enough of is getting back to the basics of human beings. Getting back to what are these people doing, what do they want, why, how can we offer a service with our communication so that they will engage with us. We need to really be customer-centric in a way that we're not these days if we're going to get noticed in this kind of environment that we're in. And we have to do that on all these different channels. So we have all the mobile devices, we have in-store kiosks, we have smart TVs, large touch screens, smart watches, etc., 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 and it never stops. So we have to do all that, and we have to do all that in a very personalized way. 94% of businesses say personalization is key to success. So most of my clients can barely handle doing their mobile website, their app, their ordinary website, and their print materials. And now we have to do all that in a way which is personalized to the individual customer who we're talking to. That is a lot of complexity. 48% of shoppers would like to use a phone to shop while in stores. So when we first had mobile devices as a big thing, we thought that mobile was about using content on the move. But we kind of pictured it in streets and in taxis and so on. And that was an alternative to the retail environment. So you didn't think about mobile device in a bank, in a hotel, at home, in a store. But actually, we use our mobiles everywhere, not just when we're moving around, or not just when there's no bigger computer next to us, but always. 74% of shoppers who showroom are older than 29, 48% are older than 40. Again, we kind of thought that showrooming, for those of you who don't know what showrooming is something that I'm sure all of you have done. That's when you go into a store, talk to the nice sales representative, pick up a product, maybe try it on, feel the weight of it, ask questions with the store representative, and then you go home and buy it online for less money. We associate that kind of behavior with younger, more hip and savvy digital consumers under 30. But actually, that's just a smart way to shop. You don't have to be under 30 to notice that you're getting better value that way. So actually, any people of any age will showroom, and we're going to find that that's going to be more and more the norm. 66% of B2B suppliers say customer expectations are driving them towards omnichannel. So again, we had a misconception that this kind of multi-touch, online, offline, etc., was more about moving consumer goods or holiday packages or things like that, but not about major business-to-business offerings, not about traditional business sales like enterprise products. I work a lot in those big B2B areas, and they're absolutely needing to look at how do we handle all the different ways that a consumer can touch us and look at them together. So my tips for success in this digital world, which I've described for you, are as follows. We have to rethink the customer journey. We have to rethink the content that customers are going to touch along their journey. And then we may have to rethink our organization. So I'm going to focus on the journey and the content and talk a little bit about the end about how our organizations may need to adapt as well. So first things first, I said it's not about us, it's about them. So let's think about things from their perspective. I'm also going to tell you about the term multi-channel and this newer term omnichannel, which is similar but different in some very important ways. So in multi-channel, we have our consumer, and they're going about their lives, and they have various formats of content. They could be talking about print, you could be talking about the mobile web, apps, desktop web, and so on. Which they can all consume, and they can consume those formats across various channels. So you could be going on social media, you could be going on the company's own website, and on those channels you will have your message, whatever it is you're trying to communicate out, your content out to the market. And the consumer may come in through the mobile website and go directly to your website and consume your message there. They may go by the desktop web to a third-party website where they will see your message and the consumer there. Or they may go via two third-party websites. They might go up to Twitter and then down to YouTube to consume your message. Or they may bypass bypass digital completely. And I'm seeing a lot of research these days that says that consumers who get a good, high-quality print material actually really respect that because they know that print is more expensive than digital. Especially personalized print really impresses them. So print is having a little bit of a renaissance as a way that you can get your message out if it's done intelligently. But is it actually that simple? That may not have seemed simple to some of you, but actually that's a real oversimplification of the customer's reality. If we look at it from their perspective, they're not just using each of these channels in a linear way, one or the other. They're doing something called multi-screening. Google in 2012 released their multi-screening report, and they told us that we're not using one channel or one channel after another. We're actually using multiple channels and multiple devices in different combinations. So we might be doing sequential usage, and that's where we would go from our phone, where we might do some initial research, and then we might complete a transaction on our laptop, or vice versa. We might start researching on our laptop and save a bunch of links and then take those links out on the road with us to use while moving or in a store. There's also simultaneous usage where we can be doing two things at once. Who hasn't consumed TV advertising while also on the internet and seeing other ads? Or you could be doing complementary usage. So you could be using an in-store kiosk or a touch screen in an airport or in an office, while also using your phone in combination to do one complementary activity. 90% of participants in 2012 were already doing that. We're going to see more and more. So omnichannel is taking a look at the multi-channel scenario and seeing it in a new way. It's realizing that we have these other channels that we weren't really talking about. We were focusing just on the digital web channels, and we weren't thinking about smart TVs and touch screens and wall panels and Internet of Things. And we definitely weren't thinking about our staff. The number of organizations that come to me and they just want to talk about their website. They just want to talk about their app. But then they have a situation where people will walk into their environments, or they will call up on the phone and they will talk to staff who have different or possibly worse information than the customer has. I just this last week I was talking to a customer, and they're in pharmaceuticals. And so if you have a medicine and you Google your medicine and you find out it's got side effects. So you call the company and ask about the side effects. The call center picks up the phone, and the person on the phone says there are 4 main side effects of the medicine that you're consuming, and this is what they are. And the customer on the phone says, well, your website says there are 5 side effects. That's happening to my customer right now, and it's happened in many ways to many of my customers, because they are forgetting that their own people, human beings, are a channel for content. So omnichannel looks at all of the channels and thinks about them in combination. So a person might go on the web, then they might go down to there, then they might come back because of a TV ad, they might go on the desktop, then they might go on the mobile website, they might take their phone into a store or a bank and speak to a member of staff or in a hotel or whatever, and then with their phone in their hand walk over from the staff person they just talked to an in-store or in-environment on-site digital channel. That's the real customer experience when we look at it through their eyes, not through our eyes when we're thinking about the print team, the events team, the web team, the app team. The customer doesn't care how we are organized. The customer is touching us many times across many points, and it's one experience for them. Multi-channel is linear and separate. Omnichannel is unified and context appropriate. So it's looking at all the ways we touch customers and how do we optimize content and content marketing for all this activity that's happening, regardless of what team it's on. I'll give you another example. There's an airline, quite famous, probably biggest airline in the Middle East. Their art direction was a disaster, and their campaign was a disaster because they were running a print campaign that had the company website on it, and then you go onto the company website and all of the art and all the visuals don't match because the print team was one channel and the web team was another. So the images are really different styles, the concepts are different in terms of the visual branding, and then they get there and there's nothing about the offer that they just read about. We fall into this hole again and again because we think that this is about how we efficiently manage our departments and our teams, and it's not. It's about the customer and how they go about their world. An omnichannel content strategy is more than a campaign. It's a continuous consumer brand relationship across all of the touch points that the consumer might use. So omnichannel doesn't mean that you have to be on every channel. It just means that you have to be great and coherent on all the channels that you're on. So now that we've rethought things from the customer's perspective, we can actually think about content differently. Content provides a virtual product, and content is your business asset. I've got an example from Hewlett-Packard here. Hewlett-Packard, their fiscal net result in 2008 was 118 billion. So these numbers are a little bit old, but they're just as valid today. And they said 68% of revenue was outside of the US, and 90% of sales were based on content, not touching the product. That means that 98% of the sales that they made were based on people reading websites, people reading white papers, people looking at blogs, people looking at data sheets and product descriptions, and making a purchase decision. Going into some sort of environment and actually touching the thing and being directly involved with the product as a physical object was a very small portion of the way that they did business. So they actually attribute $74 billion of their net revenue that year to content. There's a company called iFixit. Some of you may have heard of it or used it. iFixit is a content marketing site, basically. What they do is they are crowdsourcing manuals for how you fix devices. They started just with Apple products and mainly with the iPhone and iPad, and they put some manuals up, and then people would come and read the manuals of how they could fix their Apple products, but then they sold them parts and tools. So the content was actually the driver for the revenue. They were very literally basing their entire business on the value add that their content could give people, and then their sales, their revenue was off of the back of that. So the user pain in this case was people fixing their own technology. They found a real valid user problem, and they said we can give them content and easy access to the parts and tools they need to do the procedures that they're reading about. The result, they're the largest third-party Apple parts supplier in the world, and they got there within a few years. Quickly, they realized this was bigger than Apple products, and now you can repair your laptop, your Xbox, your car, and all sorts of other things, all off the back of content marketing. I've got another example, completely different kind of marketing. This is the Content Marketing Institute, which I mentioned earlier. This is a podcast that I did, and it looks at how you can do a traditional form of content like a podcast, but do it intelligently for multi and omni-channel. So this podcast is called the Content Marketing Next podcast, and it's an interview podcast. They ask you questions, but the content that they do in their podcast is actually designed, and it's designed with maximum long-term value in mind. So they have the podcast, and this is a little bit techie, but the idea is they have a podcast, and they have me, the contributor, they have the title of the podcast, and all these different things. They have the transcript, the text version of the podcast, and the podcast itself has named sections. Each time they do a podcast, they have the What's New section, the What's Now section, What's Next, a section about buzzwords in the industry, question and answer section, favorite books, and then advice from the speaker. What's powerful about that design for the content is it gives the content value as a business asset into the future. So it's not just valuable when they launch it, it has a life cycle. It has the ability to do different things on different channels over time. So because they have all the buzzword sections of all the podcasts in audio and in text, then they can create a whole podcast just about the buzzwords. So what do all the different content strategy thought leaders think about buzzwords? And they can do that as a recording to go out via iTunes, or they can do it as a text post to go on their blog. It could do one about what are the favorite books that the interviewers had. What are all the recommended books this year? What is the next podcast? So what do all the speakers think is coming up in the market, both in audio and text? And they could even let users define their own podcast and come on and say, I want to learn all about what European content strategists and content marketers think about favorite books, or whatever they want. And because all these little bits have been designed and named in their content platform, they can pull things out into their conference brochure. So let's say I go to talk at their conference, they can pull out my favorite piece of advice that I gave in the podcast, and they can take that piece of text and they can use it next to my picture in the print brochure of the conference when I'm talking at the conference. And having all of these different assets which they've created, of course, makes them more attractive on Google or whatever search engine you want, because they have made various assets that are going to get different popularity, and that's going to drive more traffic and more ranking on search engines. So content can live many lives. I will give you another example of that. This is somebody you can check out. His name is Nick Kellett, and he talks about what we call hybrid media. So it's the bigger concept behind the content marketing example I just showed you. Here you say every time you create any asset, how could you express that asset on another channel? So if I write a blog post, can I then record a little video about the content of the blog post? Can I make 1,000 words on the blog into 2 minutes of video? Can I record that as audio so people will listen to it as a podcast? Could I put it into a series of images and put it on slide sharing platforms? Could I make it into a list for a listicle article? Could I make it into an infographic? And so on and so on. So it's a similar idea, but taken to the next level. Basically, what I'm telling you is every time you make an asset, don't think about that asset. Think about how that asset could live many lives on many channels and get maximum long-term benefit across all the channels. That's Nick Kellett, nickkellett.com. I highly recommend you check him out. Content can also teach you about your customers. So this example is from ASOS, which is an e-commerce business consumer. They're the UK's largest independent online and fashion beauty retailer. They became a world leader in the fashion world in less than 12 years, and they're making £500 million British pounds a year. What they do is implicit personalization. So when you go onto their website and you click on men and go down to hoodies and sweatshirts, the next time that you go on that site, they remember who you are and what you clicked on, and everything on the front page will change. What offers are shown, what sales are pushed, what's new, the engagement offers like join ASOS Premier, become a VIP, the ordering of the navigation, everything will adapt itself based on what you just did. If you register, then they will know even more about you. And every time you come back on, they will get better and better at personalizing their delivery to you. They have a lot of probabilistic rules, statistics-based rules, but it's not a rigid, hard system. It's something that learns over time. So what you're doing is you're then having the ability to go from implicit personalization, where you just go and watch what people click or what URLs they came in from, to explicit personalization, so that they actually register and you can actually give them stuff based on their purchase history and personal interactions that they've done with you. It creates this virtuous cycle, as I talked about in omnichannel. The more you learn, the more you can tailor the delivery. So in summary, I'm coming to the end here. Winning organizations have to be able to listen effectively. They need to go across channels and bring together digital data, event data, external data, all at web scale. And they have to do that in a way where they can link up their key performance indicators and link up their teams across silos and across the customer journey. You cannot do multi-channel if you don't get your teams talking to one another. You have to be able to reuse efficiently in multiple ways for multiple audiences. So I talked about building assets that have a future, that can be expressed in different ways and then tailored so that you're building up different assets for different audiences from your bank of reusable assets. You have to be able to manage more personas. The more you learn about your customers, the more your segments will get more and more focused on particular types of buyers and particular buyer behaviors. This takes time and you will evolve it, but you'll need a way to manage it all. You have to maintain a consistent voice and tone across silos and touch points. I gave you the airline example. I gave you the pharmaceuticals example. I have examples in banking, in manufacturing, in automotive, where people are speaking to this one brand, but the branding is wrong, the message is wrong, it's inconsistent, and it feels like they're talking to a schizophrenic. So to work on multiple channels successfully, to really give people an omni-channel experience, you need to bring all that together. So in the future, no business is fully ready for what's coming. You're not the only ones who have a lot of work to do. We all do. Anticipation is the new keeping up. Quality content will differentiate future leaders in the market. And brands need to be relevant and vastly more customer-centric than they are today if you want to master multi-channel content marketing. So you also might like some of the resources I've got here on the screen. The slides will be available via the conference organizers. You can check out my articles and books online, and please do get in touch. I'm very happy to give feedback, answer some questions, and just let me know what you thought. Thank you again for coming, and I hope to see you in future. Have a good day.